there's a strange feeling that happens when you see something marked down from $220 to $122 before you even ask yourself if you need it. You already feel like you've saved $80. That feeling is so immediate that your brain almost skips the more important question. Would I have spent $120 on this if there were no discount at all? Most of us never ask that question, because the discount has quietly changed the conversation. It stopped being about spending money and started feeling like making money. That's the uncomfortable part. Sometimes the biggest purchase decisions aren't driven by what something is worth. They're driven by what we believe we're avoiding. And once you notice that, you start seeing discounts very differently, not because they're fake, but because our brains were never designed to experience them objectively. They're experienced emotionally, and that's exactly why they work. For most of us, buying something on sale feels responsible. It feels disciplined. It feels smarter than paying full price. We even tell ourselves stories afterward. I waited. I got a great deal. I would have been wasting money otherwise. What's interesting is that these stories aren't necessarily wrong. The discount is real, but the psychological value we assign to it often becomes much larger than the financial value itself. Behavioral economists call part of this anchoring. Our brains latch onto the first number we see. If something was originally listed at $300, that number becomes our mental reference point. Now a $180 price tag doesn't feel like spending $180 price tag doesn't feel like spending $180. It feels like avoiding a $120 loss, even though you were never going to spend $300 in the first place. The original price becomes an imaginary world we compare everything against. And emotions don't care whether that world was realistic. They only care that it existed. That's why two identical shirts can feel completely different. One cost $50, the other was originally $90 but is now discounted to $50. Same shirt, same final price, completely different emotional experience. One feels expensive, the other feels like a victory. Nothing changed except the story around the number, and humans are remarkably influenced by stories. Especially when those stories involve avoiding loss. Because psychologically, losing hurts more than winning feels good. Researchers have repeatedly found that losses tend to have a stronger emotional impact than equivalent gains. So retailers don't just sell products. They sell the feeling that you're escaping a loss. Limited time. Only today. Last chance. Notice how rarely those messages focus on the product itself. Instead, they focus on what disappears if you don't act. Not owning the item suddenly feels less painful than missing the deal. That's a subtle but powerful shift, because the fear isn't paying money anymore. It's paying more later. And our brains hate that possibility. Even if we never planned to buy the item at all, think about the last time you opened an online shopping app during a seasonal sale. Maybe you added 3 or 4 things to your cart. You probably didn't calculate how much you spent first. You noticed how much you saved. The app made sure of it. Your total savings appeared in bold, sometimes in a brighter color than the amount leaving your bank account. That's not an accident. It's interface design working alongside psychology, because companies know something surprisingly simple. People enjoy the transaction more when it feels like they're winning, not when they're spending. And that's become increasingly important in today's economy. We live in a world where almost every app competes for attention. Prices change dynamically. Coupons arrive through notifications. Memberships unlock exclusive deals. Cashback promises future rewards. Loyalty points make spending today feel like earning tomorrow. Individually, none of these are deceptive, but together they create an environment where spending is constantly reframed as saving. Eventually, the line between the two starts to blur. That's why someone can proudly say they saved $400 during a shopping event, while spending $900 they never intended to spend. The numbers aren't lying, but the emotions attached to them tell a very incomplete story, because saving money and spending less are not always the same thing. That's a distinction we rarely talk about. And maybe we should. There's another layer to this. Discounts don't just influence purchases, they influence identity. Many of us quietly want to feel like careful, intelligent consumers. Finding a deal reinforces that identity. It gives us a small emotional reward, almost like solving a puzzle. I beat the system. I didn't pay full price. That's satisfying. But sometimes that satisfaction arrives before we evaluate whether the purchase actually improved our lives. The emotional reward happens instantly. The financial consequences unfold slowly, and our brains naturally prioritize immediate feelings over distant costs. Especially after long workdays. Especially when we're stressed. Especially when life already feels expensive. A discount becomes more than a lower price. It becomes emotional permission. Permission to indulge. Permission to celebrate. Permission to temporarily escape financial anxiety. That's why shopping after an exhausting week often feels different than shopping on a calm Sunday morning. We're not just buying products, we're buying relief. The discount simply makes that relief easier to justify. None of this means discounts are bad. Sometimes waiting for a sale is genuinely smart. Replacing an old appliance during a seasonal promotion can save real money. Buying something you've already planned and budgeted for at a lower price is exactly what discounts are supposed to encourage. The problem isn't the discount, it's when the discount becomes the reason instead of the benefit. That small reversal changes everything. Imagine walking into a grocery store with a shopping list. You buy everything you intended. Half the items happen to be discounted. Great, you genuinely spent less. Now imagine walking out with 7 extra items because they were on sale. The receipt proudly announces how much you saved. Your bank account only notices how much you spent. Both statements are technically true. Only one reflects your financial reality. Maybe that's the quiet lesson hidden inside every sale. Prices don't just influence our wallets. They influence the stories we tell ourselves. And those stories shape future decisions. The more aware we become of that, the less reactive we become. The next time you see a huge discount, try asking yourself one simple question before looking at the percentage. If this were today's normal price, would I still want it? It's a surprisingly difficult question. Because it removes the original anchor. It removes the imaginary loss. And it brings you back to something much more useful, your own priorities. Over time, that's a far more valuable habit than chasing every bargain. Not because you'll never enjoy a good deal again, but because you'll know the difference between saving money and simply feeling like you did. Money isn't only about numbers, it's about attention, it's about emotion. It's about the stories that quietly shape our choices before logic ever gets a chance to speak. Discounts will always exist. So will clever marketing. Neither of those is going away. But awareness changes the experience. Instead of asking, how much am I saving? You begin asking, what decision am I actually making? And sometimes, that question is worth far more than the discount itself.